So one of the topics that is not talked about nearly enough these days in this whole conversation about microservices architectures is the idea of microservices testing strategies. It's one thing to build systems like this, it's another thing entirely to test them. And how we test a distributed system composed of many different independent services in many ways is different from how we would test a monolithic system, because the types of failure patterns that we'll see pop up are very different. So we have to attack a couple of things. We have to start to think about what the trust boundary of the system is and what moves. We like to think about in, say, the object-oriented style of mocking out our dependencies. Well, now our dependencies are in many cases across the network. What does that mean for testing? What does the contract mean? That becomes very important in terms of what our systems are supposed to do, not just the business case that they're trying to realize, but also what happens when they fail, what happens when a system that they depend on goes down, what happens when a user throws garbage input at a REST API, how should it behave, and then how should the interaction patterns between these systems work. In many cases you'll see this idea of consumer-driven contracts where a consumer of a system will actually provide a suite of tests to a service owner so that they can add those tests to their test suite. So we'll talk about what these strategies look like to us and how we can employ them in our own projects.